So as you guys saw in the thumbnail, I made a bit of an upgrade. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's going on everybody? Hope you guys are all doing well. If you are, definitely make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to show some support as we're trying to get to 1,000 subs. But that out of the way, the Nanuk 988 is the star of the show today. And let me tell you, this thing is an absolute beast, okay? As you can see from this unboxing, it's both quite large and also quite heavy. I did opt to go with the padded dividers here, so that's going to be what you're going to see in the rest of this video. It has so many features, so let's get straight into it. So this particular case comes in at 44.9 by 16.3 by 13.6 inches on the outside and 41.7 by 13.6 by 12.5 inches on the inside. So it's about 3.5 feet long on the inside, which is really amazing. It's also made in Canada, and it comes with a lifetime warranty against any defects or problems that you may have. It also is military approved, so the nice thing is that if you do need to travel with this thing on a plane, it's not going to fuse shut. It has vents and things on the front, so that way it allows air to pass through, so that way you don't get a vacuum, and it also keeps dust and water out. So this case is waterproof, and it remains buoyant up to 284 pounds, so that is fantastic. If you end up out in the water for some reason with this thing, well, maybe it can save your life. You can use it as a raft. So you may say that this seems like a lot of case. What's the price? Well, this case comes in a couple of variants. So you can get it empty for $414.95. Or you can pick it with pick and pluck foam for $484.95. Or you can get it with the padded divider for $598.45. So it's not exactly cheap, but with that in mind, this case is made in Canada, comes with a lifetime warranty, and has loads of other features that make your life really easy when you're traveling with valuables. And to make this even easier for you guys, I'm actually working with Nanuk to provide you guys with a really nice discount code, DARIO15. So be sure to use that and the link in the description and head over to Nanuk to browse their cases. And when you decide to buy, use code DARIO15 at checkout and save a little bit of money. So, what do I use this case for? Well, I use it to transport all of the gear that I may need for filmmaking, weddings, working on larger projects with clients, any of that type of stuff. Because it holds about 95% of the gear that I'd ever want to take with me, this thing really is ideal since I don't have to tire myself out holding a super heavy backpack and leaving some things behind for the sake of having it be able to fit on my back. So you guys may have seen on the channel this bag right here. This is the PGY Tech 1MO 2. If you did not see that video already and you're interested in a bag type solution for carrying all of your gear around, definitely make sure that you go ahead and check out the video up here. I will leave it linked, and it's pretty helpful. So if you guys do want to see more on this bag, you can check there. But again, like I said in that video, this bag does get pretty heavy if you're carrying a bunch of things. Like let's say that you need to carry 2 cameras, a pair of lenses, you need to carry audio solutions, and a gimbal and a couple of other things like that. This thing's gonna weigh probably 40-50 pounds, and you're gonna be having to carry that on your back. Not to mention, it is a bag, so if you do drop it or it gets bumped or something like that, you could end up damaging some of the equipment inside. It is well padded, but just keep that in mind that it's a bag, so it's not going to be the same level of protection as some sort of impact resistant hard plastic. But with that being said, back to the 988. Alright, so here we are in the Nanuk 988 case. As you can see, I have a ton of stuff in here, so we're just going to go through and sort of see how I have this configured. Just as a side note, this is not how the padded dividers will come initially when you get them. They come in a bit of a different configuration with a couple of slots for vertically oriented stuff up here as well as down on the other side. But what I decided to do was kind of get rid of those and then have this very long channel down the middle, which allows me to put in a whole bunch of little things like these stands and stuff, which we'll get into in a bit. So for reference, in the original setup, it's going to look like this. So you're going to see a couple of padded dividers there. You're going to see this long section and then another couple of padded dividers. All right, so starting off on the leftmost side here, this is going to be where the wheels are. So it's going to be basically the bottom of the case. So generally speaking, you're probably going to want to put your most heavy equipment back there. So that way when you're wheeling this thing around, it's not weighing everything down and putting pressure on the top. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. So as you can see here, this is kind of a setup guide for like weddings and other things like that. So what I have here is the newer 660 RGB Pro panel lights. So I have a pair of these and they slot in right here very nicely. So you can see holds both of them perfectly with no issues whatsoever. Then I also have the power cables for those. So that's the bricks, the little wall adapters, all of that good stuff. So that way, if I do run out of battery power for them, I can still actually keep on using them. So if you're in a wedding reception or something like that and you're using battery power and then you run out, you can still plug them into the wall. All right, so now here you can see on the side here that I have these Sony NPF style batteries. So these are the 5200 milliamp hour versions. So these are kind of the mid-sized versions. So that way I can power the RGB lights by battery. Then up here in the top panel, I have basically my mounting accessories. So I'll have my small rig base plate with the V-mount, as well as a couple of these foul cam accessories for mounting attachments like monitor or things like that. So moving on here. Back here I have a big pad covering up this next item. So up here I have all of my filters. So here is a step-up ring, 77 millimeters to 82. So that's in case I need to use a lens that doesn't have these standard 82 millimeter size filter threads. So here you can see that I have the V&D 2 to 5, V&D 6 to 9, as well as a CPL. So these are kind of the main staple filters that I might want to use, and I keep those right there. Now getting into this padded slot here, I kind of custom made this one particularly for this setup. So what it is it's going to be one of these smaller covered cover panels, which has the orange Velcro on it, and that's going to be a crossbar. Then it's going to be a standard sized divider here. It's going to be like a long one, and that is going to cover up right here my Sony 200 to 600 G lens. So you can see that right there. It holds everything, including the shroud here, which is really, really important if you're not going to be using a matte box or something like that. And of course, we also have on the bottom here a base plate, so I can quickly mount this to any of my Arca Swiss compatible tripods. And again, it's extremely, extremely secure down here. So it's going to be basically resting on some really thick padding right above the wheels. And then we have a little padded divider here. So what this one is it's one of the half-size ones. So they come with a couple of half-sized that will basically connect down to the bottom, and then you can bend it over and create a 90-degree crease there. So that'll create a little cavity for the 200 to 600 to live in. So that is how I have that set up. So another thing that's really worth mentioning here is that if you do want to do something like this, you're probably going to want to have very precise positioning of all of your padding, and that is where paper comes in. So one thing that I found makes this process really, really, really simple is if you just take a piece of paper here on the left side and one on the right side, then you just take your padded divider that you want to put in, simply slide it down, make sure that the paper is covering all of the areas where the Velcro could be touching, and then just position it where you want it, and then pull out the paper when you're done, and you'll basically have that padded divider positioned right where you want it with absolutely no problems whatsoever. It's pretty much flush. And yeah, this is how I go about building up my setup. It makes it so much easier than having to try to get all of this Velcro inside of these very, very deep cavities all by yourself. It's a real pain if you don't do something like that. So pro tip for you guys. All right, moving on. Right here, I have my shotgun mics. This is the Sony ECM XM1. I have it in a very, very small vertical container here, and this is what that looks like. Unfortunately, it kind of grips a little bit tightly, so it's gonna generally pull off this windscreen, but that's fine. You can just slot it back on, not a problem. All right, so continuing on here, down here, I have my DJI Mini 3 Pro. So that is positioned right up there. And then down a little bit deeper here, I have the DJI 3 battery charger for the Mini 3 Pro, so that way I can have multiple batteries on hand at any time. Then to the right of that, I use this little Velcro strap here to keep it a little bit tighter, but I have a whole bunch of little accessories. I don't really have bags for these yet, so bear with me, it's a little bit messy. So here we have a couple of extension tubes. These are by Movo. So what these are good for is if you have a standard lens and you want to reduce the focus distance, you can use some of these, and then we can get really nice macro shots if you're trying to do like wedding rings or something like that and you don't have a macro lens. So that's what that's for. Then here we have, of course, HDMI cables, always good to have. Then I have a USB A to C. This is for giving power to my Zoom F3. I also have a cable for SATA to USB, so this is good for transferring stuff off of my Ninja if I'm doing simultaneous recording. Right here, I have a couple of tripod feet. So these are the spikes for the Ulanzi Komen 0Y. Then I also have a little bit of paracord. Paracord's always great to have in case you need to tie something down, or if you want to have a counterbalance or something like that for a tripod to keep it from blowing over. Really good to have. Definitely suggest that you guys keep some. Here we also have a blower. So this is, of course, just for cleaning stuff up, less invasive than just like a cleaning cloth. So good to keep that around. We have, of course, the DJI controller. Really, really nice. Allows me to not have to use my phone for controlling the drone. Just simplifies the process quite a bit, and I like that a lot. Then we have a couple of sets of filters as well as lenses for the Mini 3 Pro. So always keep those on hand. And finally in the slot, I have a 12mm/15mm rail adapter for small rig cages, or really any cage that has these area locating pins. Really great for adding follow focus or something like that if you're using a manual lens on something like the Ronin. Really, really highly recommend that. Then moving on here to this slot, I have a cleaning kit by KF Concept. So you can see we have all of our cleaning supplies, gloves, all of that stuff. So if anything gets dirty out in the field, at least you can take care of it right then and there. All right, so moving up here in the top slot, this is where I keep my FX3. The FX3 goes on the bottom with a lens on it. So 24-105G by Sony. And then on top of that, you can actually put your Sony FX3 audio handle. So if you want to carry this around with you, that can actually fit up here right on top of the camera. It's not going to really hurt anything. It's not going to be moving around very much at all. And I use a cage on my FX3 anyway, so it's pretty much secure. So that is really, really nice. If you guys own the FX3 or have ever used one, you'll know how annoying that top handle is to find a place for. It's really great that it actually fits in well here. So moving on to this middle section here, I'm just going to remove these straps and we can see what we got here. So Here is going to be an extra center column with a Ulanzi EH12. So this is their fluid head, f38 on the top. Pretty nice. It's not the best fluid head in the world, but it's definitely good for what it is. It's not going to be a professional type of one like the SIRUI or the YC Onion, but definitely a pretty solid one. And then below that we have, of course, the ZeroY f38. So this is my travel tripod. Keep that in there. That way if you need a tripod for something, you have one. Below that, I keep the Ulanzi MT-49. So these are carbon fiber light stands. They're very small, very lightweight, and they can get pretty tall. These do have a little bit of wobble if you extend them all the way, so just be aware of that. I wouldn't put anything too heavy on here, but these can handle things that are a little bit on the lighter side, like if you have Amaran 60X or something like that, and you want to add on a parabolic softbox, or if you want to add on like a spotlight or something like that, you can absolutely do that with these, or you can use the newer 660 RGBs. They also work really well on these. And I have a pair of them, so you can see right here. All right, so next up here in the top pocket, I have my Pro Basecamp. So this is the matte box that I use. 2 stages. Actually, this is 3 stages. So you have the circular polarizer here in the back, then you have VND, and if you want to put a mist or something like that up front, you can do that. This is a really nice matte box to have. I always like to keep it around, so that is that. So then moving down here to the bottom, we have the Ulanzi Filmog Ace. So this is going to be a portable fog machine / mister. So if you want to have some of those nice atmospheric effects for shoots or anything like that, this will absolutely do that for you, and it is fantastic. Really great video on that I have on the channel, I believe linked right up here. Up next we have Pro Basecamp filters. So this is just your standard Pro filter bag. Got a couple of square filters in there, so if you're needing more ND, or you want to do a mist or something like that, you can do that. So up next on the top here, I have a Casematics case for my DJI Mic system. So this just holds the DJI mics as well as cables and accessories and other things like that, like the windscreens. So that is that. All right, so almost done here. Now we have a couple of Rode microphones. So these are the Rode Lav Go's. A couple of these for the DJI mics. Under that, we have Zoom F3. So this is really great 32-bit float field recorder. Absolutely love this little guy. Records for absolutely ever with my 128 gigabyte Samsung Evo SD card. So absolutely fantastic. And then we have cables, of course, for that. So we have XLR to XLR and XLR to 1/4 inch. If you guys are doing weddings, make sure that you have both. You don't want to be that guy who's asking the sound person for all of their cables. You just want to be professional when you're on set. You want to have a good relationship with everybody. So just make sure that you take care of that. Now, last couple of things here in this back pocket, I have the SIRUI Anamorphic. This is a 50mm T2.9 Venus series. Really love this lens. Absolutely an incredible value for what you get here. I really like the look of it. It is manual though, so if you guys are not too familiar with using manual lenses, or if you don't have a second shooter, this may be a little bit of a bad choice for you guys if you're going wedding photography, wedding videography, but you know, I like to keep it on hand in case I need it. So I don't have anything in here yet, but I could definitely put in gimbal parts and stuff like that down there. But the last little bit here is going to be my second camera. So that is going to be the Sony A7RV. So I just put the body right in there, and then you can be ready to go. Put on another lens if you want to put on 200 to 600 or whatever, and mount this baby on a tripod, good to go. So that is pretty much everything that I was able to fit inside of this Nanuk 988 case. This thing is absolutely fantastic. I really can't recommend this thing enough. So as you can see, that is a lot of gear. And you may say, what does this thing weigh? Well, truth is, I'm not entirely sure. But empty, the case does weigh 24 pounds, and with all of the equipment, padded dividers, all of that stuff, I'd have to guess that this thing weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 pounds. And that's why I really recommend Nanuk. They're extremely high quality cases. They have spring-loaded carry handles, which is really essential if you need to pick this thing up and throw it into an SUV or a truck bed. You also really don't want to drop $20,000 in gear because the handles are crap. So absolutely, I would go with this, especially if you're thinking about getting a really large case. This thing can handle it absolutely fine. If you go with some of the cheaper options, I'm not entirely sure that they'll be able to handle it as well as this one. Also, for this case, because it is quite long and heavy, you really don't want to be carrying it around, especially by yourself, which honestly, I don't know how you would even carry this thing by yourself. It's kind of insane. But that's why they thoughtfully included some really nice thick wheels on the bottom, so that makes moving this thing a breeze. And the latches on this case for opening are exceptional. They're super easy to open and close, you don't need to apply much force, they just work. And one of my favorite features is how the lid opens. So when you open up the lid, you're going to reach a point where you start to feel a little bit of resistance. Just push past that and it'll snap open. This is really, really great because it means that the lid is never going to fall on your head when you're packing or unpacking. Trust me, I've had that happen before on windy days, and it sucks. It's not fun. So this case is great because they actually thought about how the customer is going to be using it. Similarly to how the ergonomics were really well thought out, security is also a major feature of this case, and if you're going to be taking this much gear, you probably want to keep it protected and not have it stolen. So they give you a couple of extremely durable padlock holes on the front of the case that you can choose to lock it up with if you want. And they also have metal ferrules in there, so again, they're really not going anywhere. Another thing is that they also offer some retrofitting kits for TSA approved latches if you'd like to go that route, and you can even get some AirTag holders to stick inside somewhere inside of the case, so that way you get notified whenever the case moves away from you. Which brings me to another great feature of the case, which is something that I had already mentioned, the weight. So as I had mentioned, this thing, when it's full, weighs somewhere around 80 pounds. So no one's just going to be walking away with this thing without somebody noticing. So that's a really, really nice bonus of this case. So all in all, do I recommend it? You bet I do. I know that this may sound a little bit expensive for some, and that's fine. But Nanuk have a load of other cases. So if you do feel like this case is a little bit too big for you, or it's a little bit too expensive or something like that, you can always check out some of the other options that they have on their site. There's a lot. One of the other ones that I would recommend, I don't personally have one, but I've seen videos on it, and it seems like a really solid case, is the Nanuk 935. So that's going to be a little bit smaller, a little bit cheaper, but it has the same great quality, same features, all of that stuff, and you can easily transport a couple of camera bodies and lenses. Or if you want to build out a full cinema rig, you can absolutely do that and store that inside of that particular case. So that's pretty much all that I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, definitely make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below. Have you ever tried a Nanuk case before? Are you looking to get one? If you are, or you know somebody who is, definitely make sure to share this video with them, and use the link and the code down below to save some money on your order. And with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.